This week is officially the week of Enugu Air, as discussions around its launch are being had nationwide, with, of course, razor-sharp emphasis on the speed of its launch just over 2 years into the state's governor's administration. Reports reveal that not long after the government unveiled its maiden commercial air fleet, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority approved the airline's commencement of domestic flight operations with its operating partner, XEJET, pending the completion of its air operator certificate process. Reactions have continued to trail its launch in the state. Let's take a look outside.
Excited. It's a welcome development, a new initiative that is so welcomed. It will improve air route transportation. It's going to improve. It's going to create impact. We also look forward to employment creation through this initiative. And as we progress, we look forward to cargo and international operations as well.
We are happy for the governor on what he did. We are very, very happy. So that everybody now can go to the airport and take flights in Lagos or Abuja. The government will gain. There will much gain on it. Because before he do it, he think towards it and know that we will gain from it.
I don't have mixed feeling. And it's not negative, neither is it positive. I'm neutral. If managed properly, yes, it will. Because most of the time, the problem we have is management. If it's not done well, if it's handed over to the wrong person, it will never be well, and it will not get a good revenue for us.
I feel good about it. Fantastically good. When I say I like it, because I know how good initiatives. Yes, it's quite good initiative. Still good. It is good. When I say it is good, it is just good for whatever purpose. But it is good because the government means well for the state. No matter the economic situation, it is meant to generate revenue.
I'm so grateful about what's happening in Enugu State, about the airline governor launch. It shows a relative sense of belonging to the citizens of Enugu State.
Now, launching an airline is, as a matter of fact, one of the most ambitious ventures in aviation. From the simple idea to getting certified, the process is complex and governed by strict regulations. But beyond the praise, what does this all mean? The mode of operation of the airline and what really happens between the ideation process and the certification. Before we comment Enugu Kwenu today, let's get this statement, of course, the address by Festus Keyamo, SAN, the Honorable Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, during the launch of Enugu Air on Monday. Take a look.
When we told him the process of an AOC, because before you start an airline, you must have an air operating certificate, an AOC. And sometimes it takes 2 years to get your own AOC to operate, to start an airline, because you have to go through so many procedures to get your own AOC. And in the true spirit of who he is, in the true spirit of getting done of the Enugu, the very proud Enugu people, the heartbeat of the Eastern Nigeria, I saw that spirit in him. I said, no wonder Enugu is far more successful in this region. He said, no, I will not wait for 2 years. I will go and partner with somebody who already has an AOC. Let us start immediately. I said, Haba.
Yes, sir.
And so that was how we said, look, if that is what you want to do, the regulator, the DG of NCAA said, we will support you, because it's part of our rules. It's part of our rules. You can partner with anybody to start an airline, an existing AOC. And so we approached XEJET, we approved XEJET, and all of a sudden he went around, acquired his aircraft, and here is Enugu Air today, ready to start. Instead of waiting for 2 years. That is how to lead as a governor. That is how to lead as a governor. Just get it done. And I've seen the array of commissioners he's parading here today. Young, vibrant, intelligent. They reflect the spirit with which he is running this state. And so, he also came back to us and said, look, I want to attract private sector investment into Enugu Airport. I will not wait for bureaucracy to run this airport for me. The pace of development is too slow. I said, doctor, you said, wait now, finish the airline. But I said, no, I'm not finishing the airline. I want this airport, I want the private sector to take over this airport and run it for the good people of Enugu State. And so, before we said Jack, private individuals came together, 4 or 5 very, very big companies. And I'm saying it here for the first time. Some of the best companies in terms of management of airports. They came together, driven by him, made a proposition, and as I speak with you, in the next few months and few years, Enugu Airport will not be what you see here today. Private sector is coming into Enugu Airport, driven by the government. That's a big surprise waiting for you. I've seen some commentary say, oh no, we are selling Enugu Airport out. We are concessioning it. There is no way government can run the airports again in Nigeria for profit. We are running the airports at a loss because we don't have the drive of the private sector. I'm saying it openly and I have no apologies. And as I speak with you, the process is supported by Mr. President, the process is supported by FAM, the process is supported by Minister of Aviation, the process is supported by the Committee for National...
By Festus Kayamo SAN during the launch of Enugu Air operated by XEJET. This is Enugu Kwenu. I am Nathalie Ukwu. Good evening. And welcome to Enugu Kwenu on Afia TV. Now for insights and commentary today, we are joined in the studio by travel and aviation consultant, Mr. Wilson Ugwu. Also with us is Nonso Nnamani. Nonso Nnamani is an author and executive director of Power Shift Africa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure to have you both on. I'm sure we're going to have a diverse array of opinions today. Okay, let's start with you, Mr. Nnamani. Where have you really been? I mean, you come today, tomorrow you're off again to somewhere in Europe. How is the Power Shift Africa movement coming along?
Yeah, I've been around. In fact, Power Shift has taken, awesome, step in terms of where we started from, to where we are today. So I think it's something that is very commendable, considering the, how young people are getting involved, the consciousness for young people to be part of politics, to be part of decision making is growing, and we are currently harnessing that.
That's fantastic. So let's come back to you now, Mr. Wilson. People obviously are seeing you now, travel aviation consultant, or some may even say expert. Could you tell us more about your background in the aviation sector? How are you affiliated with this sector?
Okay, thank you very much. Initially, I came through the tourism industry, tourism sector. And then, of course, based on that, I was asked to come and help build a brand, Ethiopian Airlines, here in the Southeast. So I worked basically as the corporate sales and brand marketing partner with Ethiopian Airlines from 2014 to this moment. And of course, since then, that now drew me closer to the aviation industry. Now you can't talk about tourism without talking about travels, which is also where aviation comes in. So coming into Ethiopian Airlines also opened my eyes, and then I started attending events, programs, trainings, and all of that, because you can't talk about a brand you don't know too well about. So that also raised my passion towards the aviation industry. Again, with that, I realized that we need to do so much, especially within the region. And I convened the first summit, aviation summit, here in the Southeast called Aviation Career Meet, which of course brought a lot of experts. And that was the intention. The intention is to draw the attention of stakeholders in the industry within the region about the need to further develop our industry within the Southeast.
All right, that's fantastic. Now, the most recent news we've seen is that the NCAA has granted Enugu Air this kind of a go-ahead approval to continue or to start rather domestic flight operations. How do you generally feel about the idea of Enugu Air vis-a-vis this recent information?
Actually, if you look very closely in the industry, you find out that the Southeasterners, that's Ndibo, they actually play very key role in the industry, especially owning airlines. At least you can mention 2 airlines clearly owned by an Igbo person. And then I remember recently when I visited Yozibondo, that's Engineer Tweze, he also mentioned a lot of investment that he has made within the industry, or then bringing it home. So the more we are having more companies or more airlines owned by our people coming into the Southeast, better for us. Now, coming into Enugu Air, we know that a lot of state governors has actually ventured into going into owning their own airline, but the most successful among them is Ibom Air.
That's right.
Yes, and then I also see Enugu taking clue, going in that direction. But then why this one is very important to Ndibo is because this is going to be the first state-owned airline having its own approved AOC, that is Airline Operating Certificate. You can see what license, you can see what the aviation minister said. He was so proud to mention that the way the governor drove, kept coming and ensured that he was able to get it, even when he was told that it's going to take him 2 years to get. He said, I don't mind operating with another person's AOC. I think to a large extent, that threw a lot of clarity to certain questions in certain quarters.
Yes, and a lot of questions that definitely will be on this program. So let's come back to you, Mr. Nnamani. I've been seeing you, watching us go ahead with this discussion. We're not isolating you at all. Now we want to hear your first reaction to the idea of Enugu Air, operated by XEJET, finally coming to fruition. How do you feel about Enugu State having its own airline?
Any form of investment into the state is a plus. It's encouraged and a welcome development. Okay, if you also look at the aviation industry generally in Nigeria, there's a gap. Okay, so the existing airline companies are not able to meet up with the demand. So when you look at it from the investment point of view, we can say, okay, this is very, lucrative industry, to invest in. Okay, of course, we have some reservations. He mentioned Ibom Air. Okay, so if we take a cue from Ibom, yeah, they have been in the industry successfully for so many years.
Yeah.
But if we now try to look at their revenue return to the state, there it becomes an issue. You will now ask yourself, does the investment justify the revenue? Okay, so they've made a lot of revenue over the years, but they will tell you that over a 9-year period, Ibom Air only contributed over 1 billion naira to the state, and they will tell you directly or indirectly, but telling you that the fiscal revenue itself might not be up to 1 billion. So it now brings to the question whether this is a good investment for states. Are we prioritizing other social needs? Because when a state goes into investment, it's not just to make an investment. You are also putting social and welfare conditions, into play. You have to juxtapose other economic needs other socio-economic needs within the state, and you're going to ask yourself, in the long run, is this a viable product?
Right.
Okay. So if you ask me that in the long run, yes, it might be a viable product for the private industry where Wilson is coming from. But when we look at it for the socio-economic aspect of the state, I wouldn't say it is a viable product.
All right. We're very clear on that. Mr. Wilson, I can see you're buzzing with something to say.
Yeah, of course. I know that definitely we are going to have a different approach to this because, of course, I am coming from someone who plays a role in the industry. For me, I am looking at a long-term gain from such investment. And besides just long-term gain, when Ibom Air declares a certain amount of profits, there are direct profits and there are indirect profits. We are having several conferences already stated or stipulated to happen in Enugu, and we can't just afford not to have good transport means or transportation means into Enugu. Like I mentioned earlier, when I convened aviation career meets, I had to take my guests my special guest, having to fly from Lagos to Abuja, and from Abuja, there are certain investors that will not come to state if they have challenge, having to come into the state and go out of the state. You find out that if those investors are confident enough to come into the state, they are going to build a certain sectors of our economy is going to develop, not just the aviation. The aviation is only enabler, an enabler to other things that is going to grow. Like in the agricultural sector, there are high volume of investors that would want to, maybe Vietnamese that would want to come into Enugu, and then they would have to fly into Enugu directly via Ethiopian Airlines, or fly in to another state and then connect through to Enugu. So you now see that there is a need for unrestricted access to the state, air access to the state via the local routes. Now the Ethiopian Airline is supplying the international route. We need to enhance the local connectivity. Right. And we shouldn't have a situation whereby when the airlines now choose, they cancel flights, and then such maybe meetings and all of that, or contracts are restricted because of certain
setbacks.
Setbacks,
Mr. Nnamani,
yeah.
what do you think about the idea of immaterial profits, those cited by Mr. Wilson, that, even if the material profits might not be that much as you would like, but the immaterial benefits of having a state having its own airline?
The challenge is that some of those immaterial benefits are not quantifiable. They will just tell you directly and indirectly, but we don't have a way of quantifying that. So are we able to quantify how many people have access to jobs? Are we able to quantify how many Enugu indigents will even be recruited to work in the airline? Okay, what is their number? If you compare it with maybe investing in industries and investing in agriculture, which one would you say is better? Okay, I mentioned, take for instance, investing and giving Enugu State potable water is going to generate more revenue than the aviation. Who is doing that comparison, and how is the government getting to the point where they prioritize that it is better to float Enugu Air than investing in water? So these are issues that give us concern. Private business, no issue about that. He mentioned, not being able to fly his guests in. Even Enugu Air, I don't think is going to be able to, solve that problem. Especially in seasons where there are, there's a surge, and you struggle to get an airline. It's still going to be there. It's going to be an issue. Okay. So for me, in terms of prioritizing this investment for the states, okay, I would have, some slight reservations on that.
All right. Very valid opinions, of course. Now, let's also look at the fact that when you go to the Enugu Airlines website, you see first you're obviously on the Enugu Air website, and then when you want to book a flight or buy a ticket, you are redirected to the XEJET website. So you're seeing it's very visible at that point that it is a public-private partnership. I believe we have that transition there, so I'm sure they're going to throw it up on screen as the show progresses. You have Enugu Airlines, and then you move straight to XEJET. That's where you're redirected. So what do you make of this operational partnership between the two establishments, the two bodies?
I believe that every partnership, especially PPP, that's public-private partnership, is good for business to thrive. Most times, we will say that government has no business being in business. You just give it to people who are trained to be in business. The only thing government can do, just like, let me also make reference to Ethiopian Airlines. Ethiopian Airlines is 100% owned by Ethiopian government, but Ethiopian government does not interfere, not even 1 minute, in the day-to-day running of Ethiopian Airlines. That also has shown that governments and the private sector can actually run comfortably without interference. Then coming to the XEJET, Enugu Air partnership, XEJET, and all of that. I also think that people should also give time to be able to see what the outcome is. You don't judge a process from the beginning. You allow that process to run, because I believe that there would have been a way people sat down to analyze what the outcome is going to be. But on the long run, we'll be able to judge whether whatever their intention was is good or bad. But at the same time, you find out that you wouldn't also see a private sector that will come into such partnership and will want to lose. Enugu is using their AOC. And there's no how you are going to run it outrightly without bringing them in, because they are into business. So I wouldn't know the terms of that agreement. So I am not here to say what the terms are.
Right.
But I'm saying that whatever government is doing, we have seen projects or we have seen businesses government get into, and they don't last. I am a very strong person that stands very clear that government doesn't have any need being in business. If you also set up an organization, allow the private sector, look for competent persons to hand over that process to, and then let them run it.
All right, Mr. Nnamani, I know you want to add to that conversation.
When we mention the issue of reservation, I can mention the past incident that happened with Enugu Water Corporation. Okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Government also signed a partnership with a company that is supposed to bring in $100 billion dollars into the project. And of course, what we got to know recently is that he has been called off. And upon trying to find out what the situation is, they were saying that they discovered that the organization does not have the capacity to float such investments. So who did the due diligence?
Exactly.
So sometimes when we have reservations on this, is that because we have seen over the years how government approaches public-private partnership. It's not open. Okay, you don't even give other players opportunity to come in and say, okay, this is what you are looking for. This is what we have. How do we narrow it to XEJET? Okay, what percentage of ownership?
Exactly.
We don't know about it. Who are the people involved? Who are the representatives? We don't know about it. Okay, so we are not just going to come and celebrate here as Enugu Air without looking at precedent, without trying to find out, okay, what exactly is going on? What are we to expect? Okay, so we always have that, optimistic attitude. Okay, they are doing it, let them do it. Let's see what it happens. But the more we see what it happens, the more we see that they keep doing it the same way. And that is where the issue of our reservation comes in. Okay, and I will continue to mention that if you put it alongside other areas that can give you ready money, ready investment, ready return, why is the government prioritizing Enugu Air? Because it's looking like everybody is just trying to do something for doing its sake and not asking what can give me the maximum socio-economic impact when it comes to the state. I don't think there was a proper due diligence to ascertain that. And that is where my reservations rest on.
All right, Mr. Wilson, go ahead. What do you think about this entire priority question that Mr. Nnamani has raised? That he doesn't think that this should have been the priority at this point in time. We're still looking at the idea of potable water. That should have come fully before Enugu Air. Then XEJET as the body, the company being partnered with. What do you know about XEJET? According to a recent interview with the Commissioner for Transport, Ubiozo, he said that XEJET is a reputable company. He tried to open up on how many airlines that they've actually been partnering with and what they do, that his business is transparent and it is open to all. That XEJET is experienced and capable to fly or even handle an airline of this nature, for instance. So I want to know what you know about XEJET, if anything at all, and what you think about this entire priority question.
Okay, let me start with the issue of priority. The fact remains that it takes the government or whoever that is laying out the plan to know which one to prioritize on. Of course, during campaign, we saw that there was a manifesto and certain things were mentioned in the manifesto, and we are not going to go into details here. But the fact remains that at every given time, leadership is all about understanding, because the truth about it is that most times when we finish electioneering, we go into governance. And it takes the person who is on the seat to know and understand the direction. Because most times when we are outside the seat, we tend to play when people become coach outside the field, and they tell you he would have played it this way. But the person sitting on the hot seat will tell you, this is the direction through which we can get to this. We've seen a whole lot happening. Me, I am not here to begin to question why, what, and not. I am a person who believes strongly in let us look at the process. Okay, you say, I give you that benefit of doubt. Let us carry it out. And then even if I have my reservations, I allow you to play out yours. So that when it doesn't go right, I will now tell you this was the reason why I had my reservation. But again, it also calls for transparency in governance. I believe that these questions wouldn't have come up if there is clear-cut clarity in the entire process. I am not saying that there is restriction in clarity, but there is need when people ask questions, somebody is there to answer. Okay, how much percentage is going to XEJET? How much is coming to the states? These are questions people are throwing up. But I'm more concerned about the outcome. Over years, we are going to have Enugu youths being employed. I can assure you that the aviation career meet was geared towards creating that awareness. Within this region, we have less of our young persons. Have you ever seen anybody close to you say, I want to be a cabin crew member? Because of course they see it as something that they can't afford to get. But I made them understand that it is affordable. You can go. There is no reason for us not to go in there.
Right.
So this Enugu Air also brings indigenship in the employment process.
Right.
Because of course we are going to give priority. I am not speaking for the government, but I'm saying that at least as an Enugu person, when you appear and say that this is our airline, when you go to Ibom Air, you can actually clearly see that a certain percentage of people working there are from that part of the world.
Okay.
So can we see it from that angle? Then again, lastly, with the last question you asked concerning...
yes, XEJET as the company that
do I know?
is part of.
Of course, the truth about it is that it was when it was announced that I started researching about XEJET. And I found out that they have been playing a very silent role. In short, they were into jet lease. More of into jet lease. That's private jets.
Bombardier and
yes. You know, people come, lease out their jets and then do what they want to do. And then someone also mentioned that there has been a situation whereby a particular airline, maybe there was this mechanical issue, and then the XEJET aircraft was drafted to come and take them to their destination. So I wouldn't say here how much they have contributed in the aviation industry. But the truth about it is that I rarely knew about XEJET until when the project Enugu Air came on.
Okay, let's come back to Mr. Nnamani. I know you want to add to that conversation, but I also have to ask you this. Who says that one can't scratch his forehead and scratch his arm at the same time? Does it mean that the Enugu State government is not prioritizing water because it has floated an airline? Your take?
Yes, that's what it is, because the way they are pushing, you mentioned how the aviation man mentioned that Enugu State constantly was pushing to make this happen. Why are we not seeing the same energy in the water sector? Okay, you said people are going to fly into Enugu, to do business. What business are they going to do? You hear the government talking about tourism, talking about parks. Have you visited some of those parks? Are you going to call it something that somebody would want to visit Enugu to be part of, or to take their kids to see? Some of them, even the toilet system they've been building there for the past 2 years, they have not been able to finish it. Why are you giving priority and energy to Enugu Air? And the things that will help settle socio-economic needs, you are not prioritizing them. You mentioned that people are going to become air hostess. If you have 3 airlines, how many air hostess can you possibly have in 3 airlines? So in terms of jobs, how many people can we really say that will have access to job when this airline becomes operational? So when you compare the benefits, you mentioned that we should not question outcomes. The reason why we question outcomes is because the processes are questionable. Okay, so I'm not going to rely or put faith in an outcome when I already see that the processes are not, being done the way it should be done. Okay, I keep stating, look at precedents, what happened in water. It was touted the way Enugu Air was touted. It was all over the news. They pay social media influencers. 100 billion is coming into Enugu water. And only for you to tell me after 6 months or close to 1 year that the company doesn't have what it takes, to bring in such investment in the States, and therefore you've cancelled it and you are looking for other alternatives. So where was due diligence? The same government who failed to do due diligence in water, You now want us to entirely rely on their decision when it comes to Enugu Air. So these are our concerns. Why are we prioritizing Enugu Air over rail? Why are we not talking about rail line in Enugu State, for instance? Why are we not talking about putting a rail ring within Enugu that can connect key local governments areas, help farmers move their farm produce, help people who are doing business, even the issue of insecurity about traveling through the main road and things like that. Why are we not prioritizing those things? So the way government approaches investment makes us cast shadows and say, what exactly is going on? Okay? Air is not the only means to improve tourism and transportation within the state. What was the justification of prioritizing Enugu Air? Or are you just trying to be first in Enugu or in the east? Are you trying to be one of those states? That is not what we should be talking about. There's a lot going wrong in the economy that we need to fix. So government should not just be looking at gigantic projects, which I see happening in this current administration. Okay? Even the ICC conference, what is going to be the income generation in a year? How much do they hope to generate in a year? How many conferences are we going to attract? Are we going to be doing conferences every month? That you can now, justify the maintenance of that place, the people that, and we keep saying that some of those capital investments, leave it to the private sector. Take whatever we have in terms of our income, in terms of the one that comes, for the federal government. Look at industries, small-scale industries. Look at organizations that we can invest in. We are talking about unemployment in Nigeria. We are talking about high rise of unemployment in Enugu State. How is Enugu Air going to fix that problem?
I think
we are talking about hunger.
Right.
How is Enugu Air going to fix that hunger problem?
That's a question. I would like to throw that to Mr. Wilson now. You've heard Mr. Nnamani's very great analysis of everything from his own perspective. What do you make of the argument being put forward that this airline might not do enough for the states, that instead things like rail should be prioritized to improve the network that we have in terms of transportation? What do you make of this? How is Enugu Air going to fix the problem? Do you think it's going to fix any problem at all?
It does. It will. The truth about it is that, of course, like I also share the same view, but then I am more particular about this Enugu Air thing. Now, let me give you an instance. Recently, we had the takeover of Nikelik by Landmark Group. And I tell you, such investment doesn't just come without a certain level of demand from investors. And most times when investors are coming in, because I've been in a position whereby certain level of, if I tell you how much Caribbeans are asking for African airlines to connect Caribbean, that's the
Caribbean islands.
Caribbean island to the rest of the world, because they tend to restrict their development because there is no connectivity. I am talking because I am experienced in the industry. He's also saying this because, of course, he doesn't see much about what the industry contributes to economic development.
What then does the industry contribute if
now,
you're so sure?
The air industry, the aviation industry, has so much to contribute to the development in terms of connectivity. And connectivity, of course, we know that sometimes people think that for someone to fly, it's something elitist. But it is not. Because the truth about it is that when those investments tries to trickle in, you begin to see that even the poor man on the streets will begin to gain from it. Our young people are not easily employed. One, because there are no visible industry. And investors don't feel that they can connect with the environment. So I am thinking that, because beyond this Enugu Air thing, there are other things going on in the States. But why we are talking about this is because of the huge investment that went into it. But I'm saying that the aviation industry has strong will contribute hugely to the development of the economy. Seriously.
I just think that in addition to what he says, in all fairness, is that I think the government we have currently does not look at the realities on ground in making business decisions. He mentioned Nikelik. Nikelik is a failed project and it will continue to be a failed project. How many organizations have they done public-private partnership? Protea have tried. Several organizations have tried. Why is it not working? I keep saying one reason why it's not working, it's not my industry, I leave it to the experts. But the little I know about tourism, the little I know about infrastructure, Nikeleke is so disconnected. The goal of having Nikeleke where we have it has been defeated because we had successive governments who did not plan. So if you look at estates around Nikeleke, it doesn't support the kind of idea that gave birth to Nikeleke. It's disconnected from town. It has even been cut off from the airport. So you can't find anyone who is thinking of coming into Enugu to enjoy Enugu life, traveling down to Nikeleke, and then during the night or during the day, they make it to the city. It's not going to work. That means you have to think differently. How do I make that environment work to support the kind of resort that I'm trying to create? So it keeps telling us that you are doing these things, but it's not working. So you bring another person, you sign partnership, it doesn't work. You don't tell us why it's not working. You don't show us, quantifiable facts that is leading the next partnership. And you just want us to keep believing, which is where we find ourselves as Nigerians.
What do you think about the reputation of Landmark Africa Group? Judging by its antecedents in Lagos.
It's not just about judging by antecedents. Big companies who are known to manage several organizations can go to locations and it still becomes a failure because the environment where the business is going to operate from matters. Protea Hotel is an international organization. It has reputation all over the world. They manage hotel chains of hotel businesses around the world. Protea came and it became a failure. Okay, so why people would want us to just sit and say, okay, let's be hopeful, this thing is going to... We've been hopeful previous years, it did not work. And you are doing it the same way. Okay, the estates around Nikeleke does not support the kind of resort you are trying to create. So if it has to work, you have to think differently. We are saying this since nobody is trying to listen.
All right, Mr. Wilson, go ahead.
Yeah, let me come in on that. I think to a large extent, let's be fair because we are talking about different dispensations. And you don't judge a new dispensation with the old or by the actions of the old dispensation. The fact remains that at the point when Protea, I was very privy to that arrangement. And the truth about it is that it was basically on management level. It wasn't on outright takeover. And what we are seeing in Nikeleke Landmark Agreement is an outright takeover over a period of time. That means there is not going to be any interference. We are going to run every aspect of it. And remember that Landmark just had their hands burned where they are coming from. So they would want to prove a point. And I can assure you that they are ever ready and more than competent with the listen.
It's not a Landmark problem.
I understand.
I don't doubt their capacity.
Landmark wouldn't have wanted to. No, Landmark wouldn't have wanted a pitfall.
Let's get what Mr. Nnamani is saying.
The state has messed up the design.
The design, I understand.
So that environment is no longer lucrative for resorts. Why would I visit Enugu and go and stay in Enugu?
We're assuming that all our viewers know what that area looks like. How would you describe the area specifically? What are those weaknesses that the area has?
It is disconnected from the city. The city is supposed to expand to that area, but because we did not go into proper land planning. You see all those markets. You see the traffic, the traffic, going to and fro Nikeleke is an issue. Okay, it's more of a remote area. You can even call it a rural area because of the environment. There are certain things. That is why Nikeleke will only be patronized by government.
Are you aware of the road construction work,
the
expansion, the dualization?
Yes, but the road does not impact. Are you going to do anything about those markets, those businesses that are there, that environment? What are you going to do about it?
Some of those markets were initially marked for, they were asked to leave that area. Some of them were the buildings beyond markets.
Let's watch and see.
But are you aware of that development?
No, I'm aware that those developments are going. But that area, you see, there is a reason why if somebody comes into Enugu, they want to stay in Independence Layout. There are things that influence that decision. You're not going to move all those things down there to Nikeleke. It is completely disconnected from town, and that is why it's not working. Okay, it's not just enough to put roads. You have to look at the estates, the kind of individuals, how serene the environment is. It won't just be for the hotel business. It has to affect that whole environment.
I agree with you.
If you travel a lot, you see how resorts are. You see the ambience of those resorts. That is not what we find in Nickel. Okay, I keep saying this. The reason I keep saying this is that if we want it to work, we have to do something about our whole terrain. It's going to affect a lot of businesses. It's going to affect a lot of homes. It's going to affect a lot of opportunities. Is the government willing to do that? Is the people willing to stomach it? And these are questions that will be answered.
I have a question for you on a lighter note. Let's just try to break the ice a little bit. It's been very heated. What takes you across seas to Europe?
How do you mean?
What takes you across seas to Europe?
You travel for different reasons. Okay, you normally call it exposure. Some travel for education, some travel for
leisure,
some travel for maybe business and investment. So it's different things for different people. But most importantly, the key driver of our attention is that the environment speaks a lot about where you are going to.
But do you mind the seas that have to be flown over when you're getting there?
Do I mind?
Yes.
No, I don't mind. It's not the same. Even you see, flying
so how do you
over.
Connect?
How do you connect?
Yeah, connecting by air and connecting by road is not the same. So, for instance, when you travel and you are looking around, the ambience speaks.
No, but what Mr. Wilson was saying is that the road is currently undergoing dualization.
Of course.
Right. So why do we still say it's disconnected? Okay, so you mentioned that as well.
Yes.
So why is it disconnected?
Because of the estates.
I want to comment on that because the truth about it is that I'm actually going to agree with him that there has been some level of distortion.
Yes,
and those distortion, we can't continue. Where I'm coming in now is we can't continue complaining about what was done wrong and not doing things right. Where we meet it, if we can't change it again, then we start rearranging it. That is my own belief on this. Now, coming to that issue of a landmark, for people to come in, because I have actually looked at the prospects of the landmark Nickel Hotel. I've actually interviewed and got some feeds. And what I've been able to understand is that we are building something that it is not seen anywhere within the Southeast. And for that to thrive, or for that to actually get to the point, their target, then we need some level of infrastructures to be put in place.
Exactly.
Like that dualization, I think even the government declared that they are going to work on that road, and speedily they are working on it. Just because there was already an agreement going on for that Nickel Lake. Because myself, I can't even travel to Nickel Lake without having those traffics, especially around Abapa, Nickel Lake, and then Noah's. Then government is taking that initiative to dualize that road down to OP. That is making it accessible for certain investments that is on that route. I also believe that government should also do something about encroachment. Right. And I believe that in the course of that agreement, of course, the experts coming on board, like Landmark, would have studied the environment, the terrain, and understand that these are going to be impediments that we're going to see in the course of our business. Are you ready to remove such impediments? And I believe that Enugu State government, so I am not here to speak for Landmark, I'm not here to speak for XEJET, but the fact remains that the decision is in the right direction. Right. For tourism, for somebody like me who plays in the tourism sector, I think it is the best thing that can happen to tourism.
What about the abandoned parks? They said they are going to commission it December last year. Up till now, there's nothing. You saw what they did in Naira Triangle. It was a joke. What do you say about that?
No, so my very good friend, I understand where you're coming from, but the truth is that as a private sector player, I don't speak for governments. But the fact remains that when I see where it is going to pay off for the private sector, I will tell you. Sure. And this is where I stand. On this note, the issue of Enugu Air, please can we just allow this airline to fly, because not only that is going to ensure connectivity, there is something it does for Enugu brand. I am proud to say that I am an Enugu indigene whose airline is flying the entire country. And anywhere I go to, if you want to challenge me, I will tell you, does your state have an airline? So I am a proud airline owner because I am from Enugu State.
All right.
Let me also add that should not just be, branding our states on with gigantic projects. Let us narrow it down to impacts that affect people.
The common people. It's great. It's great.
That is what government should
Let me come in there now because we're running out of time. And it is a critical question. I'm going to throw this to you. After this question, I'm going to ask about you explaining what it means for the airline to be operated by XEJET. Just for our viewers out there, help us understand what that means. But before then, do you think Enugu Air would be successful, Mr. Nnamani?
I think it will be successful. Like I said when I was starting, when you look at the terrain in terms of demand, what you see going on in the market, it is a successful private venture. But how that is going to impact the state,
depends.
Judging even with 9 years of Akwa Ibom operation and only giving the state about 1 billion naira over a 9-year period of time, I don't think it's a good socio-economic decision.
Like for me, I believe that there's a whole lot you consider. It's either a long-term investment or a short-term investment. In the aviation industry, it's capital intensive and it's a long-term investment. It took Ethiopian Airlines years to now start running profitably, especially when you have now developed your routes. Again, when you are starting a business, you don't consider the losses you make initially. Because even a farmer who goes to farm is now looking forward to a time when his crop will now begin to yield this thing. So I believe that at this point in time, let us not begin to compare it with already established this thing. Of course, Ibom Air declared losses, and then at some point, they have now started making gains. And I believe that they can sustain that gain based on how the management handles it.
So we understand that Enugu Air is a state-owned commercial airline operated by XEJET.
Exactly, that's how it is.
So what does this essentially mean to be operated by? Does it take away from the state's ownership of that airline? Help us break it down.
Not at all. I think
income share.
Yes, income shared. It depends. Like I said, I would want to see more of the terms of agreements so that I'll be able to know what goes to who. And then we'll be able to determine if it is profitable to the state. But I believe that whoever that would have gone into such agreements would have considered the interest of the state.
It is not a private venture, so we can't be making considerations based on whoever. This is something. Yes, it's a public-private partnership. It's to be in the open.
Yeah, that's
what we are talking about.
Calls for transparency.
But then I am coming from the fact, you know, that the Minister for Aviation and Aerospace talked about something. He said that initially it takes you a period of 2 years.
Yes.
But of course, the governor was not too patient to wait for that 2 years. He wanted things to happen very fast. And like he said, the only option left is to use someone who already acquired an AOC, that is Airline Operating Certificate, to be able to, at least for the meantime, operate while making arrangements for full operational license. And this is just very clear. Like there are places where you go and you find some people will be licensed to go into an oil well, but they don't have what it takes. They will now call experts from outside to come and run it. Then it depends on the agreements they have within themselves to know what goes to what. So for us, I think at this initial stage, let us watch and see how the whole thing is going to play out.
Okay, Mr. Nnamani, I have to ask you this. Do you think that the Enugu State government should have been more patient, perhaps wait 2 years before, deciding before going into real business?
Which brings me to the question I asked initially. Why the rush? Even in the midst of having low-hanging fruits that could give us more investments, more jobs for the state, why are you pushing headlong into having Enugu?
Would you fly Enugu Air?
Of course, why would I fly Enugu Air? Why would I fly Enugu Air? I just need to understand something, that I have no problem with the investment. It makes perfect business sense.
Yeah.
There's market for it. There's opportunity for it. I don't have any problem. And the day I'm going to fly it, I'm going to take a picture. I'm from Enugu. I'm proud of my state. Okay? But because I am concerned about the leadership of my state, because I'm concerned about government, I'm not just going to fold my hands and say, okay, because the airline benefits me, then the masses that we represent within the community, that we can say that this decision is favoring them. It is not. And you said that it is not very elitist. Airline is elitist.
No, I said it. I said, of course, people perceive it to be.
It's not just perceiving. That's what it is. When you compare how many people who fly and the transportation demand we have locally in the states and areas where we need improvements, you can compare how many people that will be impacted if you invest something.
But then let me come in. When you use something like a bus coming from Abuja to Enugu, and sometimes it charges you close to 60-something thousand. And then compare it to 110,000 naira you pay for air tickets. And then you know that you can arrive at Abuja within 45 minutes. But then this one takes you a whole day.
So why do you think you still have more passengers paying 60,000 to take the bus? Because when you check the income, you just look at it as adding additional 60,000. How many people can afford that?
All right, what will be your final remark on this, Mr. Wilson?
Personally, I believe that I want to, in as much as we have our reservations, people would learn to be patient with government. And especially on a decision like this, for me, as a player in the industry, I believe that it's the right decision in the right direction.
All right, Mr. Nnamani, your final remark.
I think government should not pursue, elitist investments. They need to understand that governance is about, meeting the socio-economic needs of the people, and it needs to be prioritized. There are low-hanging fruits in agriculture, in local industries, in water. Why are we not taking advantage of them? They can give us more revenue, more impact, create more jobs. Why aren't we prioritizing those sectors?
All right. Of course, we'll throw that same question to the Enugu State government, perhaps during the next town hall within the Enugu, where we'll be asking those very critical questions. Thank you once again for joining Enugu Kwenu today. And we'll continue to watch and see where Enugu Air eventually takes off to next. I've been your host, as always, on Enugu Kwenu, Nathalie Ukwu. This is saying have a lovely evening ahead. See you next week, same channel, same time. Bye for now.